Welcome. This is the second video in a series of short videos about effective conversations in child protection. These are based on the principles of motivational interviewing and collaborative communication and applied to child protection scenarios. This is part of practice resources developed to support the implementation of effective child protection. In video 2, we illustrate how a social worker approaches difficult conversations. This video shows two contrasting styles used by a social worker when talking with a young parent. This is an emotive conversation. In the video, the father has just been told that the allegation is that he has hit Sky when he was angry and had lost his temper. This is a child protection investigation by a social worker. Sam and his son live together in a homeless hostel. He is separated from Sky's mother, who has problems with substance misuse. They are living in unsuitable accommodation. Sam believes other people at the hostel are creating problems for him as he doesn't fit in. The allegations that he hit his own son is especially difficult for Sam, as he'd been subject to an abusive childhood, physically abused by his father and taken into care in his later years. The nature of the child protection concerns means that this conversation has to take place. In the first example, you will notice how the worker uses their own power and control over the situation. They label the father as angry and violent, highlighting his shortcomings and problems. It is critical and judgmental. In the second example, you will notice that the worker takes a different approach. In it, they acknowledge how difficult it is for Sam to hear the allegations and that Sam wants to be a good father. Sam is given an opportunity to talk about Sky and how he is as a child. He lights up. The social worker focuses on what is going well and the strengths in the situation. Then they focus on what's difficult. Try and notice how each conversation developed, what approaches were used, and what were the outcomes achieved.
It's not fair. She's the one he needs protecting from. Like, she's out of her head most days. The place is a mess, parties, there's different guys in there. Do you have any idea how hard it is to give him a clean home, a routine, and try and do stuff with him? And you pick on me? I never hit him. You have no idea what I went through with my dad. I'd never do that.
Pull yourself together and calm down. You have a violent history and a history of drug use. You're a very young and inexperienced parent. You're often angry and you don't seem to be able to control yourself. We've had a report from the hostel that you've been shouting at Sky and slapping him. I have to ask you these questions.
It's not fair. She's the one he needs protecting from. She's out of her head most days. The place is a mess, parties, there's different guys in there. Do you have any idea how hard it is to try and give him a clean home, a routine, and do stuff with him? And you pick on me? I never hit him. You have no idea what I went through with my dad. I would never do that to him.
Sam, I can see how upset and angry you are about these allegations. I understand that being a good dad to Sky is very important for you, especially because you've had such a tough time yourself growing up. Seems to me like you've got a lot on. And what with looking after Sky, housing, benefits, but you still try your best for Sky. Tell me about him.
I don't know, really. He's really funny. He likes playing outside, going on the swings and that. And he's really clever. He likes to read his books. Well, I read them to him. He's a good kid.
He sounds like a bright lad. Bit of a live wire? Your face lights up when you talk about him. I can see that you love him very much and that you're very proud of him. So what are the things that are going well?
Well, we've got a good routine going, and he's in school half days now. And he loves that, so I get a bit of time to do stuff. I can try and sort my benefits out, or try and talk to housing.
What's it like when things aren't going so well?
Well, we're up there in the hostel, and the buses are crap. The place is a mess. I try and keep our parts clean, but other people are just such pigs. I worry about Sky picking up bad stuff from the other kids, because their parents don't care, but I don't have a choice. I can't be on the streets with Sky. And I don't want him to go into care. And I don't want him to go back to his mum.
It sounds like there's a lot of pressure on you. And you don't have a lot of support. It's difficult living in a hostel with other people and... How are you coping?
We manage. I don't do a lot with the other people from the hostel. We don't get on, and I don't take any shit. That's probably why someone's called you and lied about me. I just want a place for me and Sky.
Good. We both want the best for Sky. And you know that I'm here about the information we got. I know that it's upsetting when someone accuses you, but you also understand that I've got to follow it up with you. It's a chance for us to talk about it and for you to tell me what's happening from your point of view. I expect that there are times when you're a great dad and there are times when you think you could have done better. You know, most parents would say that. Let's see if we can sort this out and what's going to work best to help you and Sky.
So, what did you notice? This is a familiar scenario for child protection practitioners. They are charged with dealing with protecting children and have difficult conversations with those that may pose danger to the child. They have to have the conversation, and avoiding the issue is not an option. How would you respond to Sam's frustration? He's very frustrated and powerless. It brings deep recollection of his own childhood experiences of being abused. He wants more than anything to be a good father to Sky. He doesn't want to be accused of failing to be a good father. How can you prepare for such an interview so that you have the ability to make good choices and avoid it escalating into conflict? In the clip, the social worker uses a few approaches that changes the mood of the whole interview. In the first video, the worker matched the father's hostility by asserting their own power. It did not diffuse the tension, but increased the level of hostility and resistance. Sam didn't feel understood or listened to. He was being judged. Nothing he could say would change that. He couldn't win, whatever he did or said. In the second video, the social worker acknowledges how difficult this is for Sam. In acknowledging this, Sam understands that the social worker knows about his situation and how this is for him. The social worker asks Sam to talk about Sky. Seeing Sam light up, the social worker says that this shows how much Sam loves Sky. The social worker then focuses on strengths. What is going well before looking at challenges? This is a classic approach to collaborative conversations, to focus on positives and strengths first. What are the key learning points from these examples? One of the main challenges in difficult conversations such as these is that they are emotive. They can trigger a fight or flight response in us. How well do you know yourself? If you were faced with Sam's deep sense of unfairness, how this shook his very sense of who he was and wanted to be, how would you react? Would you react instinctively? Go with your guts? Or would you react in a way that you always had options and choices available? You could argue that it's easier to be a social worker in the first example, just taking control, telling Sam he's angry, telling him to pull himself together, putting him in his place so he listens to you. Look at his body language. Crossed arms. Defiant look. Not conducive to working collaboratively with you on changes that may be necessary to keep Skye safe. In child protection, you can anticipate that many conversations have the potential to become difficult. How can you prepare for these? The skills of reflective practice can be used to make practitioners better prepared for these situations and to capture in-the-moment action, the awareness to give you alternative options about how to respond. What do we know about what makes effective conversations? The best conversations are the ones where people feel really listened to. In being listened to and knowing the person has understood your position, these conversations help practitioners really understand what is important for families, but also families often start to make sense of their own situations as they can put time and thought into it. We saw this in the example with Sam. A good way to remember the core skills for having a good conversation with people is the word OARS. This stands for some of the key principles of effective conversations. Firstly, to use open-ended questions that opens the conversation. Remember to affirm the person. Notice and acknowledge their strengths. This helps you counteract a focus on failure or limitations or risks. When you listen, make sure you listen reflectively. And during the conversation, summarize in an empowering way. The role of the child protection practitioner is to safeguard the child, and this always requires us to effectively engage with families. A controlling and critical approach by a practitioner may feel justified to the practitioner. It will seldom be effective in the long run. The principles behind OARS is that we prepare our mindset as a practitioner as we prepare for the start of the conversation. It counteracts the natural tendency to criticise families, which often results in their defensiveness. So OARS is keeping your questions open-ended. Be affirming. Listen reflectively. And summarise in a way that empowers families. Some of the key skills are to listen carefully and show empathy. In Sam's situation, the social worker reflected on how difficult this was for him given his own childhood, how much pressure he was under, that no parents were perfect. Social worker gave Sam time to talk about Skye, then summarised and reflected on this and what it indicated. The conversation started on what was important to Sam and his strengths. The social worker paused to avoid reacting to Sam's initial frustrations and anger, giving herself a little space to make decisions. Using reflective practice. This is often reflecting on situations that have taken place before. But reflective practice also has a role in your preparation for action, preparing for these difficult conversations. And as you become more practiced in reflection, it should make you more aware of yourself in that moment of action. We saw the social worker in the video making choices as the conversation developed. This video is part of the practice resources for effective child protection. Other videos in this series are available to explore effective communication. These focus on areas such as dealing with hostility, sharing a child protection report with a mother, amplifying change talk and agreeing what needs to change, confirming the change statement and building steps to change. Additional handouts are also available for you to download in the Practice Resources section.